Hello and welcome to another Magic Arena gameplay video. Today we're taking a look at another standard deck as part of my ongoing budget series here on Channel Fireball, where we try to build the best decks possible with as few wildcards as possible. So make sure to check out the written article on the website as well for more information and ways to potentially improve the deck if you've got the additional wildcards for it. But for today's budget blue-white flyers deck, all we need are 14 common wildcards, 10 uncommons and 8 rares, and 4 of those will be spent on the blue-white dual land, the Hengate Pathway, which is going to be useful in plenty of other blue-white decks going forward. And then the other rare is spent on Skycat Sovereign. This is one of the centerpieces and payoffs of the deck, a 2-mana 1/1 elemental cat with flying that gets +1/+1 for each other creature we control with flying, and we also get a nice mana sink ability for 4 mana, creating a 1/1 white catbird creature token with flying. Then the other payoff of the deck is Watcher of the Spheres, a 2-mana 2/2 bird wizard with flying, saying a creature spells with flying we cast cost 1 generic mana less to cast, giving us a nice discount, and whenever another creature with flying enters a battlefield under our control, Watcher of the Spheres gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Then taking a look at the rest of the deck, at 1 mana we've got the full playset of Battlefield Raptor as a 1/2 bird with flying and first strike, can potentially be replaced with Kitesail Cleric if you want to upgrade it to an uncommon, although there are situations where the 1/2 flying first strike is going to be better than the 1/1 that has a nice late game ability. Then we also have the full playset of Fairy Guidemother. You start out with 3 copies from the starter deck, so only need to craft 1 of these, gets you a nice 1/1 flyer and can sometimes use the Gift of the Fae Adventure to get in some extra damage. Then at 2 mana, besides our 2 payoff cards, we also have the full playset of Clarion Spirit, a 2-mana 2/2 spirit that says whenever we cast our second spell each turn, we get to make a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So this is great with all the cheap spells in the deck, like our various 1-drops, and can start generating an army of spirits that will synergize with other cards, like our Skycat Sovereign, can trigger our Watcher of the Spheres as well. Then at 3 mana, we have the one-off copy of Brazen Borrower. You start out with 1 of these in one of the blue starter decks, so everyone has 1 of these on their account, so you don't need to use a wildcard for it. And then we can sometimes use the Petty Theft Adventure to bounce a non-land permanent back to the opponent's hand, and then a 3/1 flash flyer afterwards as well, so very versatile and powerful card. So that's definitely one of the cards you can add more copies of if you've got the mythic wildcards for it. Then we also have the full playset of Cloudkin Seer, which is one of these arena exclusive cards that's only legal in Best of 1 standard, so we won't be able to play this deck in traditional or Best of 3 standard as long as Cloudkin Seer and Winged Wards are in it. But we get a nice 3-mana 2/1 flyer that when it enters a battlefield we get to draw a card, so also great with the mana discount from Watcher of the Spheres. Then we've got 2 copies of Frost Trickster from Strixhaven, the 3-mana 2/2 flyer that when it enters a battlefield can tap target creature an opponent controls, and that creature is not going to untap during its controller's next untap step, so nice tempo play against other creature decks. And then we've got the full playset of Winged Wards, which we can cast for 2 mana if we control a creature with flying to draw 2 cards, so that's a very good rate. And then we also have 2 copies of Jubilant Skybonder from Ikoria, a 2/2 flyer saying creatures you control with flying have the ability that spells your opponents cast that target this creature costs 2 generic mana more to cast, so nice protective ability for all our flyers. And then last but not least, 2 copies of Gust of Wind, which cost 2 less to cast if we control a creature with flying, and then returns target non-land permanent we don't control to its owner's hand, and we get to draw a card. So 2-mana bounce spell that draws a card is a pretty good rate, and does a similar job to the Brazen Borrower. And then last but not least, 2 copies of Warhorn Blast from Kaldheim, a nice finisher that we can foretell for 2 mana first, and then later cast it for 3 mana out of exile, giving our creatures +2/+1 until end of turn, so nice finisher for the deck. And then the mana base, besides our 4 blue-white dual lands, we also have 9 basic islands and 10 basic plains. So I also want to remind you that this video is brought to you by Channel Fireball, in particular U-Box We Buy. The easiest way to sell your Magic cards, just throw them into a box, CFB does the sorting, the grading, the pricing, and you get your cash fast and easy. So head on over to channelfireball.com/U-Box-We-Buy or click the link in the description for more information, and be sure to use the code LVD to let them know that I sent you. But for now, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play with a fine opening hand. Turn 1 Guidemother, turn 2 we've got a lot of options. There's also a world where holding the Guidemother to trigger Clarion Spirit is the way to go, but we'll draw more spells. Opponent also blue-white. We're unlikely to double spell next turn, so don't need to play Clarion Spirit, and between Skycat and Watcher, I think Watcher first. And then next turn we can get the Skycat in play. Birth, so blue-white control could have access to some sweepers, which we don't want to see. For now, play Skycat, pump Watcher. Can Gust of Wind the token, not that it's really bothering us. And double Clarion Spirit seems fine, or we can play more conservatively, potentially beat a sweeper by holding double Clarion Spirit, and then for now I can just make a token with Sovereign, which also plays around a counterspell. So we'll start by attacking, and then before damage I can make a token with Sovereign, which also pumps Watcher of the Spheres. Opponent casts Thirst for Meaning to draw a few cards. Yeah, sweepers are pretty hard to beat for our deck since we're not playing any main deck counter spells. Although cards like Sovereign are kind of a one-man army. So Sovereign can help you avoid overextending into a sweeper. Archon of Sun's Grace, normally a great blocker, but Gust of Wind the perfect answer here. And I think we've got Xaxes. Yeah, that was a pretty savage draw, even at a Frost Trickster to tap down the Archon next turn. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play with a fine opening hand, a bit creature light. But if Sovereign survives, we get to cast a cheap Winged Words and a cheap Gust of Wind to find more flyers. Well, let's see what we're up against. Turn 1 Island, second Sovereign's great. Definitely playing that before we start drawing cards. Opponent mono blue so far. And a Nimble Trapfinder, maybe some sort of party synergy deck. Next turn we could also make a token which pumps both Sovereigns, although we're pretty likely to find a flyer we can cast off of Winged Words. As we see Realm Walker for the opponents. Good synergy with the party creatures. Name's Snake. Skybonder's not bad. So it's more mana efficient to potentially double spell here, Winged Words and Gust. I'm gonna start with the Winged Words since drawing another flyer would be ideal. Warhorn Blast we could foretell, probably just gonna Gust of Wind the Realm Walker then. And then next turn we can Skybonder plus foretell, or we can Skybonder and use the Gift of Fey Adventure. It's gonna be an Orvar the Allform, alright. So opponent's gonna try and set up some sort of combo with that card. Could also just play the Guide Mother without casting the Adventure just to pump the Sovereigns, which is also fair. So let's try that instead. And then next turn just casting the Warhorn Blast might be enough to kill them. Opponent's at 6, we've got protection thanks to the Skybonder to an extent. So let's see what our opponent can do. Replays a Realm Walker, naming Snake, and a Masked Vandal off the top is not gonna save them here. They're facing lethal and we can make it extra lethal with a Warhorn Blast. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play with a fine opening hand. Sadly, Clarion Spirit doesn't synergize with the Watcher of the Spheres discount, but it will still generate those spirit tokens to pump our Watcher if we cast everything in our first main phase. Opponent on a Lurrus deck with a turn 1 Lumimancer, so blue-white Magecraft perhaps. We'll still play Watcher, and then we have the option of playing a 2-mana Cloudkin. Opponent's got their own Clarion Spirits. Yeah, triple Clarion Spirit is going to be quite strong in this matchup. So, given that we're kind of choked on white mana, I kind of like playing the Clarion Spirit this turn, and then next turn, depending on what we draw, we can potentially double spell. If we draw land right away, I can go Clarion Spirit into, let's say, Cloudkin. If not, we might have to Winged Words first. Opponent plays a Light Scribe and attacks. They probably have an opt here to trigger Magecraft. So yeah, they've got Light Scribe plus Clarion Spirit, which is scary. Represents a lot of damage. Alright, we found blue mana, so we can go Clarion Spirit number 2 into Cloudkin Seer. And attack with probably both, since I'm okay trading Spirit for Light Scribe. Opponent takes it. I'm okay chumping with some of our tokens, since we can make more of them. Opponent gonna draw 2 cards for 1 mana, so they've got a Winged Words beat here in terms of efficiency. So, could easily be dead to a Show of Confidence. Definitely gonna block Lumimancer. And then, yeah, probably have to chump a second creature here. Could also put a Cloudkin in front of something to force them to cast a spell. But they're probably gonna do so anyway. So, we'll block like this and see what happens. Could still be dead. Opponent's gonna kick things off with an opt. And let's damage happen. Another Lumimancer. Alright, so we can go Spirits into another Winged Words. And they seem to be holding up a Defiant Strike. So they can potentially pump their 1-1 on defense and a Lumimancer. Alright, that's a lot of land. So if they have a Defiant Strike, they can eat a Clarion Spirit, eat my Cloudkin Seer, take 7. I have 4 creatures on defense, which may or may not be enough to survive. But yeah, I think staying back is not gonna help our cause too much. And forcing them to cast the Defiant Strike now means they might not have a ton of spells left to Magecraft next turn. Alright, they're gonna just chump the Watcher instead. Also makes sense. Opponent falls to 5. And they're gonna keep all their spells for next turn. So, can block 4 creatures here. And probably will have to block all of them. So just the 1 token going through, and then next turn we can assume they'll make another Spirit token here. Are we gonna have enough to potentially kill them on the way back? It's definitely not a guarantee, since they'll have 2 blockers, both of which have flying. So I might be 1 damage short of killing them. But I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be dead if I don't quadruple chump. So our best hope is drawing into either a pump spell or maybe a bounce spell to remove a blocker to still get there. Because yeah, if we don't block another one of the 2/2s here, I'm pretty sure we're dead to the Light Scribe triggers. Gonna kick things off with an opt. And a Defiant Strike on the unblocked token. Do they have another one? Then we're just dead. They do. Alright, GG's. Close one here against Blue-White Magecraft. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play with a fine hand. A Raptor into probably Watcher of the Spheres. And then try to cast 2 spells alongside the Clarion Spirit here. Up against a red-white deck. Scorching Dragonfire takes out our Watcher, sadly. I might Winged Words without playing my Clarion Spirit first to then try and cast 2 spells next turn with Clarion Spirit plus maybe Gust of Wind. Before the opponent gets a chance to remove it. Now we can go Clarion Spirit plus Watcher. Another Scorching Dragonfire takes out our Raptor, that's fine. So, I've got a nice board presence going now. And hope the opponent plays an expensive card we can bounce with Gust. Instead it's going to be a Fire Prophecy taking out Clarion Spirit. So no shortage of spot removal for the opponent. And a Pacifism on the Watcher, at least the discount still applies, so great with our Cloudkins here. And we can also Gust of Wind the Pacifism, just so the Watcher can attack. Yeah, that seems worth it. Also draws a card. And we can even play the Raptor. And hit for 5. So our hand's not great, definitely flooding a bit. Hoping for more card draw effects. Alright, opponent takes the damage. And next turn, something like a Warhorn Blast could also be lethal. Opponent casts a Tactician, 2/3 flyer. Yeah, that's definitely gonna stabilize them nicely. And replace another Pacifism on Watcher. We can pump Battlefield Raptor to get past Tactician. Still play my land, because if we chain together card draw spells, we might need all our mana. Alright, opponent's now empty-handed as well. But double Tactician. Cloudkin's one of our better draws. And a Clarion Spirit I'll take. Could also hold it for next turn, since we're probably not attacking with a Clarion Spirit and we don't get to trigger it now, so I want to wait to cast another spell alongside it to at least make a 1/1 Spirit. So let's hold it. Not really in a position to attack. Opponent's gonna hang back as well. And that's great. So now we can go Clarion Spirit into Cloudkin, trigger the Spirit. And at the very least we made a 1/1. And another one, nice. We drew all 4 Cloudkin Seers. And a Warhorn Blast we can foretell, and then next turn that's probably going to be lethal. Opponent attacks. I guess we'll block the Weasel back, but our opponent packs it in. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a fine hand. Turn 2 Watcher gives us access to a 2-mana Cloudkin and Skybonder. Turn 1 Traveler's Amulet from our opponent. So not sure what we're up against. Amulet sacrifice to search a basic. Gets a forest. Still gonna play a Watcher here. Another amulet. Also sacrificed. Alright, I'm intrigued. Probably want to get our Skybonder in play to protect our creatures as soon as possible. We are a bit choked on white mana, so we won't necessarily be able to play double Clarion Spirit, but Clarion Spirit into another blue spell is going to be fine next turn too. Could also decide to Winged Wards or Cloudkin, so I can draw a card and we're more likely to have 4 lands in play next turn. And then between Winged Wards and Cloudkin, I suppose Cloudkin is slightly better since it also gives us a bit of board presence, pumps our Watcher. And then keep up Plains since we could draw into a 1-drop, which are all white, so we can still cast them afterwards. And we did find our land, so next turn we can go Clarion Spirit into Skybonder perhaps. Alright, Sanctum of Stonefangs, so our opponent a multicolor Shrine deck, which explains all the mana fixing from Amulet. And they could have some sweepers. That being said, we are diversifying our mana costs against a potential extinction event by going Clarion Spirit Skybonder, so that's probably the play. Gonna keep Gust of Wind to bounce a more expensive Shrine. So Skybonder and Cloudkin are odd mana costs, while the rest is even. Our opponent passes with 5 mana up. Well, I can go another Clarion Spirit into maybe a Winged Wards. And find a Raptor, which we can also play. Alright, and that's lethal, so not sure what the opponent was holding, maybe some cards they couldn't cast, but we got there pretty quickly. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a fine hand. Good curve of creatures. Facing a snow-covered swamp. So we'll set up a turn 2 Watcher, turn 3 can play one of our 3-drops at a discount. So red-black could have access to quite a bit of removal, making our Skybonder more valuable. And our opponent foretells a card. So we'll play Watcher. And if it survives, we can Skybonder plus Raptor next turn. If not, we'll just play the Skybonder. Alright, it's going to be a Poison the Cup, which lets him scry 2 as well. And another Cloudkin is definitely a nice one. So now the opponent's removal is going to cost 2 more. And we can try to out-card advantage our opponent with our Cloudkins. Acquisitions Expert can have a look. They can have my land. I might not be able to double spell Cloudkin and Raptor next turn. Now we can anyway. If they play another Expert, I'll happily discard my island. Ooh, Extinction Events. Yeah, that one's incredibly effective. Wipes my entire board. Play Cloudkin. And then we'll play a Guidemother. Could have left my land in hand in case of another expert. Although 5th land still lets me cast our Warhorn Blast. It's gonna be a Draugr Necromancer. Opponent probably has Frostbite in their deck if they're playing snow-covered lands. Well, still gonna adventure here. And then hope they cannot remove my flyers. Yeah, that Extinction event was backbreaking. We were all good against spot removal, but sweepers were going to be effective, and they even get to keep their expert. Take 5. Vicious Return kills our Cloudkin. Or a Guidemother, which they can then replay right away. Goes for Cloudkin anyway. Might as well play my land since we're gonna have to discard a card. So it's not looking good. Opponent discards Tergrid, which they can then replay out of the graveyard with the 3rd chapter. And now Cloudkin can block Watcher, unless we can play another flyer to pump it up. We're also down to 10 life in the meantime. And next turn, their Tergrid or Kroxa is also gonna gain haste and a +1 counter. Kroxa, of course, won't stay in play. Fairy Guidemother, so can pump one of them. And attack. Opponent's probably gonna block the 3/2 Guidemother. We've got a 1/1 on defense. And they let us go to blocks. So we're at 1. They can just cast double Guidemother too, so don't think there's a realistic way for us to still win. And a Vicious Return can also just deal 3 to us. Alright, GG's. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw with a fine hand. We draw one off Brazen Borrower. Got a reasonable curve of creatures. Facing black-white, so maybe a life gain synergy deck. We'll kick things off with Watcher of the Spheres. And head for 1. And then we now have access to a 2-mana Skybonder. Erebos' Intervention's gonna take out our Watcher. I think I still like playing the Skybonder. Alternative would be Watcher into Guidemother. The good thing about playing Watcher, of course, is that we get a discount next turn as well as getting extra damage in by pumping the Watcher. So it's definitely a close call. If our opponent has more spot removal, playing the Skybonder first is probably a safe bet. Could have also opted to just play my second blue source and then pass with the intention of casting Brazen Borrower. And then next turn I could have cast Watcher and Skybonder in the same turn. Also reasonable. Although then we're not necessarily taking advantage of the Petty Theft adventure. It's gonna be a Resolute Rider. That one we can easily bounce with Petty Theft. So we'll play Watcher. Hit for 3. And then the plan is to bounce the Resolute Rider before they potentially give it lifelink. Clagbridge Troll, okay. That one we could also bounce, and that's going to give us more tokens. Can even pump one of our tokens with Guide Mother to get in. Although it's not really giving us any additional damage. Gust of Wind's also good. It is a sorcery, so I wouldn't be able to bounce the troll necessarily, but can easily take 8. So I can still use the adventure. And sure, we'll give a Goat Flying. And then I want to play Brazen Borrower now just to pump Watcher of the Spheres, even though it has flash. Leave 2 goats on defense. And Gust of Winds should get us across the finish line here. Opponent is free to attack. Can jump Resolute Rider all day. And our opponent packs it in. They're taking a lethal in the air next turn. So yeah, as you could see, we did face quite a few unusual decks, maybe some starter decks with a few modifications. So that's also one of the advantages of playing these budget decks in the play queue, is that you're going to end up facing some of these weaker decks, making it easier to get your daily wins and complete your quests. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.